get more on the mood around England and the camp. All the players, of course, together ahead of that game that's live on talkSPORT this weekend. Let's say hello to talkSPORT's England correspondent Faye Carruthers for more. Hello, Faye. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, Andy. Hi, Benty.
Hello, Faye. You're right.
Faye, listen, we've got lots to throw at you, if that's okay. We've been talking about James Maddison. His form has been exceptional so far this season. And, of course, you've got the likes of Jude Bellingham, who's smashing it in Spain. And then we know how great Declan Rice has been for Arsenal. The front, those have to be the middle three, I think, for most England fans. And I think there's a bit of pressure on Gareth Southgate to get that right, because we know he's a fan of especially Jordan Henderson, who's been in the headlines for the wrong reasons over the last couple of days. Do you think he'll go with the right three and not play a Henderson or a Phillips?
Well, it's going to totally depend what formation he plays, because actually against Ukraine, when they won 2-0 at Wembley, he played a 4-2-3-1. So he had Saka, Bellingham and Maddison behind Kane. So slightly different. And then obviously we saw Saka and Rashford playing alongside either side of Kane in that 7-0 demolition of North Macedonia at Old Trafford. So it totally depends on what he's going to do. But that's certainly an option. And Maddison has been picked and started on a number of occasions now for England, because he's trusted by Gareth Southgate, because he can go on and do a really good job. And Jude Bellingham is one of the first names on the team sheet nowadays alongside Harry Kane, because he's just formidable. Would
you agree if he does play three along the middle, those have to be the three?
Yeah, I would say so. We've got such an amazing array of attackers, and Declan Rice talks a lot about his newer role, if you like, going forward a lot more rather than defensively, and he can do both of those jobs brilliantly. And obviously we know what Jordan Henderson can do as well. So I kind of, it's difficult as to whether or not Jordan will start. I would say you've said the correct midfield three there, but it totally depends on what Gareth Southgate decides to do against this opposition, and that's what he did against them at Wembley.
Faye, do you expect Gareth to potentially maybe use this to have a look at more players, or do you think, because again we talk about Harry Maguire, I feel like we talk about him all the time, but he obviously hasn't been getting any minutes, and we know how important he is to Gareth Southgate. So do you think Gareth Southgate will use these friendlies to get him minutes, so that means he'll play both games?
Yeah, I did think so, because there's no John Stones. He's out injured. So you've got to have your most experienced centre-back, if possible. And if he's going to, use the youth that he's got, he's brought in Fikayo Tomori, who's been out of the fold for a little while, and of course Levi Colwill as well, then they're going to need to play with a more experienced centre-back, you would think. So, yeah, I can see that happening.
What's the mood like then? You've been there, you've been submerged in the England camp. What's the mood like ahead of this game?
Yeah, really relaxed and chilled. I sat down with Bukayo Saka and Ben Chilwell yesterday, both in really good form, actually. It was Bukayo's birthday, and then it got announced just after that he'd won the Young Player of the Year award again, second year in a row, which is fantastic for him. And see, Ben Chilwell has been given more of a kind of experienced kind of captain's leadership role at Chelsea now alongside Reece James. So, he's got a new side of his game that he's bringing in. And it's just, I sat down and had a long chat with Ben about injuries and how that's kept him out of, major tournaments and a lot of Chelsea football as well. And I think he's just looking forward to trying to get, a long stretch of playing rather than, few games here and there, another injury, few games here and there, which, is just stuttery for a player of his quality. He needs a little bit more regularity.
Faye, someone I'd love to see get an opportunity is obviously Eddie Nketiah. I think he's been very good for Arsenal this season. He's looked really sharp, got a couple of goals as well. Do you think he'll feature? Because we know how much, again, Gareth leans on and Harry Kane, and rightly so. He's the captain. He's England's best striker, if not one of the best strikers on the planet. Do you expect Eddie to get any kind of minutes on the pitch potentially?
Yeah, definitely. There's no point bringing him in otherwise, and we know, how great Eddie has been in the youth teams and the under-21s. He's England's record goal scorer, and he's been waiting patiently for his opportunity. I've interviewed him on a number of occasions at Arsenal, and now for England, and he sat in front of the press conference. He's a really humble, confident young man, but he's not kind of bolshy with it, if that makes sense. He's ready to bide his time and show Gareth Southgate, and like he has done with Mikel Arteta, exactly what he can do, because he believes in his own abilities. And yeah, I do think he'll get minutes, because don't forget, we have got one Euro qualifier in terms of Ukraine, but the game against Scotland is a heritage match, and so I could expect him to get minutes in either either one of those, depending on how the game's going.
Now, there's always pressure, Faye, when being an England manager, when you've got, obviously, you're managing the national team. But when you look at the amount of talent, I know some of them are injured, that Gareth Southgate's got at his disposal going into the Euros. Does that add even more pressure? Because you're talking about some of the best players around the world. Jude Bellingham's at Real Madrid. Obviously, Declan Rice has moved to Arsenal. Okay. We've got Harry Kane's at Bayern Munich. We've got all this talent. Do you think it's one of those where there's even more pressure going into this tournament?
In a way, but I think it's pressure you want to have. I mean, you want to have the kind of pressure where you're having to pick the best players because all the best players are available. That is, that's a dreamy managerial situation to be in for sure. So I think he kind of looks at it in that way, I would think. And, the exciting thing about England nowadays, as you've seen with the under-21s winning the European Championship, that, this is there's a pipeline of fantastic players who are all starting to make it into the senior squad, along with, players who are applying their trade in the Premier League and doing brilliant things there. So it's going to be a massive selection headache. But what you want as a national team manager, I would say, is competition for places and it being difficult to get yourself into an England squad for a European Championship.
But you're going out there soon. When do you fly off?
Flying off to Poland first thing tomorrow morning, going to Wrocław for the first time, which apparently it's absolutely beautiful out there. So we'll have a recce of the stadium ahead of the game. We've got matchday -1 commitments to do there on Friday, and then the game live on talkSPORT on Saturday night.
Sounds great. Do they fly you out first class, talkSPORT?
Obviously, of course. I get the whole first class cabin to myself.
Yeah, you liar. Listen, thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure. Have a safe trip.
Cheers,
as well.
Faye.
See you later.
talkSPORT Drive. Super opinionated sporting debate. Monday to Friday afternoon from 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.